Hi to everybody, and I'm Molly with Hands-On Knitting Center, and I'd like everybody to meet John with Ula and Leah Yarns. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. They're pretty exciting.
So where are you, and what time is it where you are?
Yep. So I'm in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. So I'm in the capital city of Mongolia, and yeah, it's 1 a.m. here. So there are changes with daylight savings time and stuff like that, but I'm exactly 12 hours difference from Eastern time. That's where my parents are. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My parents are there. So I really can't get further away without getting closer. So my mom's a little bit upset about that sometimes, but it kind of is what it is, I guess. I guess I could go further south, I could get further away, but yeah, so it's exactly 12 hours here. So I think I'm 15 hours ahead of you guys.
Yeah, yes. Well, we really, really appreciate your joining us in the middle of the night to do this. And we're very, very, very excited to have your yarn and to tell everybody about it. This is Earth Day for us. We're kicking off our 4-day in-store yarn crawl with your amazing yarn and this morning. So I'm just going to talk up to you a little bit about some things, and then we'll talk about your yarn specifically. So what took you to Mongolia?
Yeah, so originally I went to the University of Pittsburgh. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I graduated in 2009 with a finance degree. And 2009 was not a good time to graduate with a finance degree. So I was looking at volunteering, and so I actually joined the Peace Corps. And whenever you join the Peace Corps, you can choose the countries that you want to go to or don't want to go to, but that can really limit how likely you are to get picked. So whenever I applied for the Peace Corps, I didn't have any preference. They have programs in South America, Africa, different Southeast Asian countries as well too. I thought I was probably going to end up going to Africa, but then I got my assignment here to Mongolia, and I was stoked about it. So so that brought me here in 2010, and I was in it's the second largest city in Mongolia. It's called Darkhan, and I was there for 2 years doing small business development work. But yeah, that was what originally brought me here. And then after that, I went home, and as a gift, I bought my mom a cashmere scarf, and she just absolutely loved it, was raving about it. And I was looking for a way to kind of stay in touch with Mongolia at that point. Being here for a couple of years, you learn the language, you have friends, and it's kind of a unique experience. At that point, I was just fresh out of college. And so that was kind of my experience. And I thought that there were some unique things to do here. And that's kind of what ended up bringing me back. At first, it was with a fashion label that it worked for a little while, and then it didn't work after that. But, I learned a lot. And then kind of after that is when I started with Ula and Leah.
And so how did you become interested in doing the yarn instead of finished products?
Yeah, so whenever I first had my fashion label, it was called Imzik Step, and there was at a mall, I had a pop-up shop one year for Christmas, and a lot of people would ask me about the yarn, just if they could just buy the knitting yarn, because they were knitters. I didn't have any of it. And then I do a lot of Kickstarter campaigns. We'll get a little bit more into, Kickstarter and how I do that. But the first Kickstarter campaign I did with Ula and Leah was actually for blankets. It was for throw blankets. And again, through that campaign, people are just asking me for the knitting yarn. So the second campaign was for knitting yarn, and that's kind of the start of this incredible process and journey.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So tell us about where cashmere comes from and how it's created in Mongolia.
Yeah, so maybe now would be a good time. I could pull up some pictures here.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, so actually,
they have black faces.
Yeah, those are the sheep. It's weird for me talking into the pictures without being able to see my face. Let me try to do this. Will I pop up? Or, okay, here we go. I think this will work.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of where the fiber comes from here and kind of what makes, Mongolia unique. This is a picture that I took. It was near actually the historical capital of Mongolia. So you can kind of see in the background, there are some houses and there's kind of like a small village in this area, but yeah, it's all free range animals. So they have sheep, goats, cows, horses, yaks, baby camels, and adult camels as well too. I guess you can't have the babies without the adults, but so yeah, they're all free range animals and they're raised by traditional nomadic herders here. The winters are brutally cold here in Mongolia. So temperatures will get down to -40 degrees Celsius, also -40 Fahrenheit. But so in order for the animals to sustain themselves through these winters, they have to grow these like super downy fibers and really warm fibers. And then in the spring, depending on the animal, they get brushed off. And that's kind of the start of the production cycle.
And they're brushed, not sheared.
The sheep are sheared, the yaks and goats are brushed, and then baby camels, it kind of depends on where they're coming from, if they're brushed or they're sheared. The thing is, like the goats and the yaks, they have like kind of different lengths of fibers and different thicknesses of fibers. They have the guard hairs, which aren't good, and then they have the cashmere or the yak down kind of underneath it. And that's what we want. So when you brush it, it kind of leaves the guard hairs and then it just pulls out like the downy fibers that are shedding.
Yeah.
Baby camels, they're just like pluff. Like there's no guard hairs in like the first couple of years. So you're not like leaving behind the guard hairs or anything. So so sometimes they're brushed, sometimes they're sheared as well.
Very cool. Very cool. I kind of now want to see a big fluffy baby camel.
You're asking the right person.
Okay.
I think where it is, well, it's maybe I'll just go through.
Yeah.
It's going to be like the 10th picture on here.
That's okay. I can wait.
Okay. And just, because there's like the yak herders, the yaks are in like the mountainous areas. And the camels will be in the desert areas, and then the goats and sheep are kind of everywhere. I'll try playing this video and hopefully it comes through okay. But this is with a yak herding family that I stayed with last summer. And so you could just kind of see like kind of it's kind of wide open areas. And the guy Shijer, he is on my right side. We were actually going through the woods on trying to chase a wolf out of the area.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and during the process, we found his animals. They were out to pasture. There's a little baby yak there.
Oh.
And so we'll go off to the right, which is kind of back to the ranch, back home, and then the yaks will kind of continue on their way out to pasture, and they'll come back.
Graze. Is it kind of like open grazing? They can go wherever they please?
Yeah. They'll usually stay within a mile or two of the ranch. And then at night, they'll either go back to the ranch themselves or the herders will go out and kind of bring it back around. So.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. And everybody who has joined us, if you have any questions, please feel free to either unmute yourself or throw them in the chat. Bridget is watching for everything. We'll be happy to ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so that was early spring, so it's still quite cold there, but it was around the brushing time as well too. Yeah, I think right. So this is in the same ranch, the people that I was staying with. It's kind of like an extended family usually. I mean, sometimes with herders, it'll just be them and their nuclear family. But in this case, you could see in the background, there's like felt yurts, and that's the traditional housing the countryside and easy to move because they're nomadic herders. So 3 or 4 times a year, they'll change locations and let the grass rejuvenate. So yeah, you can tear down and set up the yurts like really quickly in a couple of hours. So yeah, and in this case, you have some aunts, uncles, brothers, and sisters, and then they marry and their children. So you'll kind of, you know, depending on how much area there is, you'll have kind of a larger extended family. But yeah,
That's a great picture.
Yeah, family portrait. Yeah, you can imagine, you know, having little boys out there in the countryside. There's really no rules. So you just kind of run around and play all day. So.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. And so one of the cool things about your yarn is it's right on your label that they're free range, right? And so this is, you know, because they are raised in the traditional ancient ways, right? Of sort of farming in Mongolia.
Yeah, and I really think it is like the best possible way that animals can be raised. You know, so that's like the good part about free range, and the benefits are definitely there for free range. But there's some issues as well too, and there's problems with kind of sustainability. And maybe I'll get into that a little bit later, but since everything is free range, like there's no fences. So sometimes it's a little bit hard to regulate, but I guess that's the cost of freedom sometimes. But yeah, wide open spaces, no fences. Yeah, free range animals.
That's great. Do you have pictures of the goats in this?
We'll see where they're coming up at some point. But yeah, this is just another picture here of that ranch that I was at. You could kind of see like the open spaces kind of around there. And another quick video here of some horseback herding and the animals kind of running through.
Oh, wow. And those are the goats that just ran by.
Yeah, goats and sheep. Yeah.
What's the kind of territory that they travel in? Oh, was that inside a yurt?
This is inside of a yurt. Yeah.
Wow. That is so cool. And what kind of, when they go, you know, 3 times a year, what kind of like territory are they traveling over? Is it hundreds of miles, a few miles?
That's actually a good question. It's going to depend on the family, but it's not going to be too far. Yeah, like 40 miles, 50 miles, okay. I would say at the most. But usually it's like whenever they're moving, it's to be on like a different, like in the summer, you want to have more shade. In the winter, you want to have more sun, or you want to be in an area with less wind in the winter and things like that. So there are kind of different areas, and you want more protection in the winter and things like that. So yeah, they'll change that way. And but yeah, it's also really important it's like everything's free range, but you're still in that same kind of area. So if you stay in the one area, that 2 or 3 square kilometer area is going to get really overgrazed if you don't, switch your land every now and then.
Gotcha.
Okay, so some goats. This is in the Gobi, actually really close to the area that there's a cooperative that I'm partnering with starting this year. It's going to be really close into this area. But this is a pretty good picture of the different colored goats that you have as well. So they're kind of by a well waiting for a drink. And the main colors is you have white, you know, the cream cashmere, which is actually a little bit more expensive than the other colors. And then you have brown, or like a reddish brown, you could kind of see in the back. Yeah. And then there's also kind of a black and gray that you could see there on the right. But generally speaking, yeah, white is kind of the most prized, and then the red and the brown.
And is the white most prized just because you can dye it easily, or is there another reason?
Yeah, just because it dyes. To be honest, I'm not too sure. I kind of prefer the shades and the colors from the brown. Yeah. Just because it's darker and it's a little bit more But there are, yeah, some colors where, yeah, you just have to have the white and the cream for. It's better to use the cream than to bleach if you need a really true fiber or a really true shade or a color.
Gotcha. Ah, they're so cute.
Yes. Yeah. Whenever the goats are around the ranch, or, you know, they were here too, because they were waiting for a drink. You can get pretty close to them and they're not too skittish. But whenever they're out whenever they're out grazing, they tend to keep their distance a little bit more. But yeah, once they get home, I don't know, I always want to play with them a bit more, but it's still kind of like a semi-feral kind of a thing. They don't,
right.
Sometimes you'll get a brave one that'll come right up to you and play with you, but for the most part, they keep a little bit of a distance. The baby goats are pretty brave though, usually.
And the last time I talked to you, you were very sad about the fact that the lockdowns, you missed baby goat season.
Still sad, yeah. We'll see. Yeah, hopefully, you know, they'll still be small and innocent by the time I get there in hopefully July or so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's kind of one other kind of natural color here. You can see it's like a lighter tan. It's kind of a mix between the cream and the brown.
Beautiful.
But yeah.
And of the colors that we have from you, the cream is probably a natural. Is the gray a natural color, or is it dyed?
No, the natural colors, because we do the yak and camel wool as well, and those are, well, we're going to be dyeing them this year.
Okay.
But kind of traditionally, the camel wool and the yak wool don't get dyed. It's just people don't do it here.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it. But those are always brown. So I have like a sandstone color from the camel for the natural colors, and then kind of browns from the yak wool as well. But yeah, this is a goat, you know, with his winter coat on, and he's, you know, in that brown. So like that's a color that I have. I think the first year, I don't know if I did it the second year or not too, but that's also pretty common, just like traditional natural cashmere color.
Yeah, that's beautiful. He's gorgeous, or she.
Yeah, this is actually right. Yeah, a kind of a shot of how it is in the winter. Near my friend, he has a artist residency. He has kind of a studio in the countryside, and so these aren't his animals, but you know, they're kind of the herder that lives kind of near him.
Yeah.
But still a pretty good kind of representation of what what grazing in the winter looks like.
And wide open spaces, so that wind is going to howl, right? That's just going to be cold.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the saving graces of Mongolian winters, is that it's not usually windy. Like, thankfully, it's usually just a dry and still winter, which helps. But yeah, when it gets down to -30, -40, it's cold. So
I was wondering, I mean, what do they eat in the winter? Do the herders supplement that, or do they just eat through the snow?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's both. So there is supplemental feed. You know, it's like the animals, they bulk up during the spring and summer, and they pack on weight for the winter. And so they will be thinner come spring. But there is supplemental feed that the herders have. And depending on the weather conditions, they're also going to be grazing. Like, bad winters here are natural disasters. And so if you have like drought in the summer, and then you have a particularly rough cold winter, or maybe it snows very early, it snows a lot early on in the season, and the animals can't get down to the grass, that's kind of it turns into a natural disaster here. And so there's kind of a emergency reserve from the government, and they'll kind of supply the herders with feed as well. But yeah, it's a mix of both, and it depends where the animals are and how the vegetation is that season.
Gotcha. So one of the, look at that. Okay, now I just want a baby camel.
Right, let's ship them over.
I'm sure my husband wouldn't mind.
They grow up, Molly.
I know. Why do they have to grow up, Bridget?
Yeah,
that is so cute.
These are actually the newborns. So, I mean, they're born in spring. And so it's not their fur that we take because they haven't been through a winter yet.
Yeah.
And then, so it's actually like the first and second year camels is where the baby camel wool comes from.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you could see that they're just ploof. Yeah.
Are the camels kept there as pack animals, really more than, are they working animals more than raised for other reasons?
I mean, eventually, like the animals are used for meat here.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like in the Gobi, it's both. You know, it's like it's for their fur, it's for their meat, it's for pack
Everything.
animals.
Absolutely.
Well. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, interesting.
But yeah, these were actually, it was kind of in like a touristy area where you know, people would go for camel rides and things like that too. But yeah, these two were just, it's one of my favorite pictures. They're just so cute. Big eyeballs. But yeah, camels they're one of those things too. Like the adult camels, they're like massive. The Bactrian camels here, it's kind of like a moose. You think a moose is the same size as a horse or something, but you see a moose in real life, like, I think it's huge. It's kind of the way that the camels are.
Okay. Yeah, they're darling. So as you keep going through photos, one of the things that I have always found interesting with cashmere and knowing a little bit about it is no matter what country the goats are raised in historically, it's been a matter of taking the cashmere in a fairly raw form out of that country, sort of paying pennies on the dollar, so to speak, for a very luxurious and wealthy fabric and fiber. And then the money comes down the supply chain, so to speak. So one of the things that I really loved about what you're doing is that you are keeping so much of that entire process in Mongolia. Can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, I don't want to interrupt the slideshow, but could you speak to that as we sort of look at things?
Yeah. I'm getting pretty close to the manufacturing part here too. But just one more picture of a baby yak. But actually, we gotta.
Oh my gosh, so that's brushing the yak right there.
Yeah, I'll play this. This is one of the herders brushing yaks and then kind of start into the manufacturing process.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, that's actually there's a yak wool cooperative, a small cooperative that we work with. We purchase all of our yak wool fiber. So this was actually one of the herders that works with that cooperative. So could be some of the fiber that was in our yarn from this past season.
That's amazing. And I love how just calm and happy the yak is and saying, thanks for brushing me, man. Right? There's no angst there. It looks really happy.
Yeah, he's hanging out. I mean, like sometimes it can be a little bit awkward, but I mean, they're not hurting him, you know, but it's like sometimes it's just they're not used to being handled. Like they're not pets. So sometimes the situations can be a little bit awkward, but they're definitely not hurting the animals. I love the animals. I've always had a really strong connection with animals. So that's a really important thing to me as well, is that, you know, animal welfare and taking care of the animals.
I love that.
Yeah, and kind of, you know, with what you were saying about what usually happens here, especially with cashmere fiber, there's for most of the fiber, it's shipped out to China, and it's shipped out there. Whenever you're processing cashmere, first you get the raw cashmere, then it needs to be washed. And then after it's washed, you need to separate the cashmere from the guard hairs. And after that is kind of the lowest form that things are ready to be exported. So you can't export just like the raw cashmere. So it has to go through a couple of processing steps first. But right, yeah, traditionally manufacturing has been used, you know, whether it's for Italian, you know, luxury brands or brands in Europe or demand in China, they usually just take the raw fiber, and it kind of leaves a lot of value-added services to be desired. You know, in Mongolia, there is a lot of production here. There's manufacturing here, and so yeah, it's like what we do is we partnered with a like a smaller spinning facility here in the capital. And this is a video here of the carding equipment that they have. I think this is our yak wool being processed.
They're always so loud.
Yeah, should I turn it down a little bit more?
No, you're good. You're totally good.
Yeah, it's always a little bit difficult getting videos and pictures in the factory, but yeah, this is kind of like the starting process of where the carding is. And, you know, I think the director, Bimba, is going to show up here on camera, but everybody there, they're really flexible. They really worked with me to kind of make something unique there. There wasn't much hand knitting yarn that was being made in Mongolia before this. And so you have the thicker, singles that need to be made. And most of the time, the other people that I'd asked about it wasn't something that they were interested in, wasn't something that they were trying to do, but they've been really helpful through this whole process, kind of learning and growing with me. And every year I ask for feedback from my customers, constructive feedback to improve the product. And they're always great with helping me out to, you know, continually to improve quality and keep an eye on things. So they're a really huge part of, you know, what's made this journey so far a success.
That's great. I need to do just a couple housekeeping things for people. We're probably going to go a little bit over, John, if you're open to that. Sure. And so just in case anybody is limited on time, the secret word today, if you are following your passport, is goat. If you're not sure what I mean by passport, I think Bridget's going to put the link in here. We also decided that since it is Earth Day today and the kickoff of this whole in-store yarn crawl, we're going to do 15% off of both the Ula and Leah yarns, and that's only on our website, right? And so that's the Cashmere, and also on Earth yarns in store. So you don't need a coupon or anything like that. They'll just ring up automatically, both online and in store. So just know that that is there. This is a very, very limited supply of this really amazing cashmere. So just FYI, there's only like a little bit of it. So so if you are so inclined, I just thought I would just say that out loud to you. So John, do you have more to show us on the process?
Just after this, I don't think there's too many more videos, but yeah, just like a little bit of more of inside the factory. But did you have any more direct questions or?
So how much influence do you have over the colors that they're dyed?
Complete influence.
Okay.
So it's actually one of the hardest things that I have to deal with, or that I have to do every year, is to choose colors. It's terrifying for me. So I'm actually going through that process right now, trying to figure out, the colors that we're going to do next year. This is baby camel wool being plied. And this is one of the crimson that we did last year, kind of waiting to be twisted and spun. But
that's so
kind of the thing with the colors, and, you know, this kind of goes in with production as well. But at the minimum, it has to be 50 kilograms for a color. So, and if I have like 50 kilograms for a color, like they'll do it. But if I do that a lot of times, they kind of get mad at me. So because it's like whenever there's a color that goes through the carding equipment, for example, that I was showing, whenever the colors get switched, it has to be completely cleaned. So there's no contamination. And the workers don't really like that. So
gotcha. That makes
sense.
Not
the favorite thing to do. At like larger spinning facilities, they have kind of crews that are just for, cleaning equipment and resetting the equipment and stuff. But so here it's like usually with cashmere, every year I'll do, 3 or 4 colors. And then, but.
And then some natural colors as well of the cashmere?
Yeah.
And so the cream is basically an undyed cashmere.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And then what is the total weight of yarn that you make every year? Do you know that number?
Last year, I think total it was around a ton. It was around 1,000 kilograms that we did.
Okay.
And yeah, of that, I think cashmere was about 400 kilograms.
Okay.
And
Is it your most popular fiber?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the distribution is actually pretty even through all the different fibers, I guess. But yeah, the cashmere is the most popular. And then this year, yeah, it's kind of a difficult thing right now too, is we're kind of planning. You have to kind of make deposits and plan for the fiber coming up. So I'm planning for around 1.6 tons of like the raw cashmere. And so you buy the raw cashmere, and then it's usually it takes 2.2 pounds of raw cashmere to make 1 pound of like cleaned, ready to spin cashmere.
Okay, because that's getting rid of the dirt, the farm debris, and the guard hairs.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And so just for everybody else, as you think about cashmere, I mean, there are times when you'll pick up a cashmere and you'll put it on your neck and it's pokey. That pokiness is a cashmere that was not well cleaned, right? So some of the guard hairs are still in it, or it's not quite as fine. A micron count can be an issue with that as well. But in Mongolia, it's so cold, you really don't have much of a problem coming up with really fine cashmere.
Yeah, it's the cashmere, it tends to be around, like, good cashmere is in like the 15-16 micron range, and that's always where the Mongolian cashmere comes into.
Yeah. The
thing that usually makes Mongolian cashmere particularly unique too is it's a really long staple length of cashmere, and so that is really good for durability. It'll last longer. It's not going to pill as much too. So
yeah. And and that's really great to actually know about the pilling, because cashmere can be known for that. And it's a nice twist on your cashmere. And I know our weavers who've seen it are dying to weave with it, right? Because it definitely looks strong enough to, warp and weft the whole thing. So that should be really fun. Do you have any more photos to show us or on that?
Yeah,
I would sure. We did, by the way, have a suggestion of having a goldenrod or a gold sort of color added to your selection. What is this? Is somebody's hand spinning the yak?
Yeah. I'll actually play it. There was the Yak Wool Cooperative that I work with. They also have 3 hand spinners that they work with. And last year I sold some of their hand spinning yarn. I want to expand this into cashmere as well too, but I was in their home taking videos, and I think her granddaughter showed up, and she was just too cute. But it's just kind of showing them the hand spinning process. And this isn't in a Mongolian yurt. This is in her home, but it's a really good kind of project that they're doing there too, with hand spinning, and good jobs, like good work.
Great. Boy, that's beautiful spinning she's doing there too. That's not her first rodeo.
Right.
So we've carried in the past quite a bit of hand spun cashmere from a different group in Afghanistan. And this is, for those of you out there thinking about this yarn, this is quite different because it is mill spun, right? So it is a commercially made, very smooth, very consistent yarn. I love a hand spun, but sometimes for the stitch definition, you're really, really wanting the commercial as well. So the stuff that you're finding on our website is all commercially spun.
Right.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Makes me want to get my spinning wheel out.
Yeah. And this year I wanted to expand a little bit more inside of the city as well too, and get a group of people, a group of hand spinners together for the cashmere. But of course, this year getting groups together in cities didn't work out too well. But yeah, the feedback that I've had so far about the spinners and their work has been great. So it's definitely something that I'd like to continue.
That's awesome. She is so cute, and she is super interested.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting is that I'm actually sitting here knitting with your yarn as we're chatting, because that's how we roll as knitters. And tell us about working with it and sort of the oils that are still on it and what the experience would be like.
Right. Yeah. So the spinning facility that I work with, they generally produce for knitting machines here for the industries here that make machine knitted items. And they have they keep the spinning oils on them. So I don't know exactly how it usually works at kind of larger yarn producers, but they'll usually do like a pre-wash. They'll have the equipment, and kind of the logistics set up for doing a pre-wash. But for ours, it still has some of the spinning oil on it. So, it's like if you touch it, it's still soft, it's still beautiful, it's still lovely. But after you finish your item, and I tell people to do it in the blocking process, but people have done it as a pre-wash as well too. They do it before knitting with the items. Yeah. But it's important to wash it in hot water with a little bit of dish soap seems to work the best too, to kind of loosen up the oils. And then it really releases kind of the softness of the fiber. So you kind of get used to it when you're knitting, it's like happy because it's soft, and then you finish and you block it and wash it. And then it's kind of a completely different kind of beautiful fiber that everything really softens up a lot.
And so I do want to say, yes, you did hear him correctly. You are washing it in hot water, but not in a washing machine because you'll felt it, right? You're soaking it in hot water with like a little bit of Dawn to pull that grease out.
Right. Yeah. It's always the agitate, hot water is okay. Agitation is okay, but you don't want to do hot water and agitation together. So, right. But yeah, it's kind of like a soaking, and kind of push it, maybe you could kind of squish it in your hands a little bit to move things around. But yeah, after one or two rinses, the fiber really comes to life.
Hey, and I just realized that Stephanie has joined us. So unless there's another picture you want to show us, I thought I would show her shawl and have her talk about the finishing process, right, from a full-on avid knitter point of view.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great to hear.
Okay. Do you mind stopping sharing screen, and then we'll be able to highlight Stephanie when she comes on? Let's see. And can you find Stephanie for me? And Stephanie, if you unmute yourself, there you are.
I'm muted, but hi everyone, but you're only going to have my disembodied voice because I'm in pajama mode. I'm just admitting it.
Well, it is early. It is early.
Yeah, for me it's early. For Molly, it's nighttime, but for me it's early.
Exactly.
So I don't know, Molly, if you want to highlight yourself, you can see the shawl better, and I can keep talking. But okay, this yarn is a work of art. The yarn is a work of art, which then makes works of art that you get to knit. It's fabulous. The washing process, yes. So I first heard about John and the yarn from a customer at a shop in Arizona who reached out to me through the shop because they were hoping that like shops would start to carry it so they could get it, whenever they wanted. So that's how John and I connected. And so the first time I knit with the Cashmere was just several weeks ago. And I had never used any yarn that wasn't already washed. I've been knitting for decades, and this is the first time it ever occurred to me that you'd have to do this. So the person who had turned me on to it, she was crazy and washed the skeins before she knit, and that scares me. So I washed my finished shawl, and so the yarn before washing, I don't know how many of you touched it. It's lovely. I mean, it's lovely already. I couldn't understand how it could possibly get any better. It had my favorite qualities of cashmere, which essentially, I'm sure this is not technically correct, but my impression when I knit with good cashmere is that it almost feels like it's this very firm cord wrapped around which is wrapped a luscious fiber. And what I like about that is that the yarn presents on the needle very easily, and so it's just a joy to knit. You can't split it, it doesn't wobble, it's just right there. And this felt like that. I couldn't understand how it could get any better. Anyway, I did fill up my sink with tap water that was hot. I figured, the worst thing that will happen is I'll have to knit it again. Bummer. And I was concerned, but whatever, we did it, followed the instructions, and it was not boiling hot, but hot that came out of the tap. I put in the little bit of dish liquid, not just enough to make some bubbles, and I set it in there and I squished it around with my hands. And I will tell you, some dye did come out, so don't freak out. Not a lot of dye, but some dye did come out, although I could not tell that at all from the finished product. I let the water drain out, and then I repeated the process 3 times. So I filled my sink up with hot water 3 times and let it drain out. And then I rinsed it in cool water also just sitting it in the sink and squishing it around, and drained it. And then I blocked it. So I did the whole thing over again in cool water, and then, you know, do what we normally do when we blocked. And it just, what seemed to happen is the core that's so firm kind of just went away. And then all that was left was halo and beautiful fluff and plenty of color. And I can't wait to get my shawl back from Molly. Usually I'm like, keep my stuff forever. It's fine as long as it's working. I don't care
sorry,
if
you wanted it back? I don't think that was in the contract.
You can keep it for as long
No,
as.
I'll send it back to you.
You can. I'll just knit more. So I would say that you can be afraid of this washing in hot water process, but do it anyway. Just do it anyway. Just keep going. You will be rewarded.
I can't believe how much softer it got. I will say, because I'm with you. When I went ahead, when Stephanie introduced me to John, hey John, are we the first shop to have your cashmere?
Yes, you are.
How about that, right? We're feeling really special about that. So we're the first shop to have it. And when we met and talked about it, I think I'd actually already gone on and bought some from your website. We are going to put your website out because we have only the cashmere and only the cashmere in fingering weight right now. So the DK weight is available on your website, and some yak and some camel as well. So Bridget's going to throw your website in there as well. But anyway, when I got it, I felt it out, and I brought it in the shop to show everybody. I'm like, this stuff is awesome. And then I started knitting with it. And so you can smell the oil a little, which is a kind of an interesting thing. And that's not an experience I'd had before. And then I felt Stephanie sent me her shawl, and I was like, how can you take something that's absolutely perfect already and make it more perfect? But that's somehow what happens in the washing process, is it just blooms and just says, I'm supposed to be like the most amazing thing you've ever touched.
Yeah, that's it's awesome to hear. And I felt that it was something over the first couple of years. It wasn't something that I talked about a lot as far as that finishing process to it. And then this last year, I've kind of put a little bit more of a spotlight on it, kind of wrote more about it on the labels, and was a little bit more forward about getting the washing instructions out to people so they knew exactly how to handle it. And that's, always the feedback that I get as well too. Because, people in the past, they were always really happy with the yarn, loved the yarn. It was always great feedback. But sometimes I was wondering, like, I think that, they could like it even more. They could really, get the full experience of like the Mongolian cashmere with a good washing.
And most of us would never on our own have chosen warm to hot water, right, to soak cashmere in. So that instruction is actually super, super helpful. So I'm going to ask Bridget if we've had any questions come up from anybody, but one of the things I do want you to talk about is your Kickstarter program and why you do that, and a little bit about that and how people can sort of find out about it.
Awesome.
So we haven't had any questions.
Okay.
I'll just put that out there.
Thanks, Bridget.
Kickstarter, it kind of goes, well, maybe I'm still kind of in a similar situation, but the first Kickstarter campaign that I did, and pretty much what Kickstarter is in a nutshell, is it's a website that you can tell your story on. You can make a campaign, you make a Kickstarter campaign, and you have a goal for the project. And for me, I mentioned before about the batch minimums. It's 50 kilograms per color at least. And so if I want to do just like one cashmere color, one yak wool color, and one baby camel wool color, it's cashmere is more expensive. The other fibers are a little bit less expensive. But in order to do 3 different batches, I pretty much needed $15,000. And whenever I started Ula Lia, I didn't have any money. So I was just here in Mongolia at that point, teaching English and kind of paying rent. So how Kickstarter works is you make a campaign, you tell the story, and you do a pre-sale. So it's not for immediate delivery, but you also have a goal. So my goal on Kickstarter for the first project was $15,000. And if I pre-sell $15,000 or more, then when the campaign ends, it's usually about a 30-day period. It can't be longer, it can't be shorter. But if I raise more than $15,000, then people's credit cards are charged, I get the money, and then I buy the fiber, spin the yarn, and deliver it. if, for instance, maybe I only raise like $13,000 or $10,000, the project would not be fulfilled, people would not get charged, and then I also would not be on the hook to deliver for items that I don't have the money to actually produce. So, so that's kind of the point of the Kickstarter campaigns. And even now, you know, kind of going forward, the issue that I have here in Mongolia is they only brush the animals once a year. So I need to plan and buy for the entire year pretty much right now. I mean, I'm making contracts right now. And so currently the only thing that's changed since the beginning of all of this is I actually have the money to put up for the down payments. So it's like, oh, I'm going to be, you know, signing the contracts for the fiber that I need and paying a 50% down payment on it. But after that, I'm pretty much not going to have any money. So that's where the Kickstarter is going to come in. And then so I'll have to raise money on Kickstarter for the rest of it. And also so I can have inventory for the rest of the year as well too. So as it is right now, I still don't have access to really, I guess, traditional forms of financing or anything like that. So it's, so
I have to say that as knitters, I mean, there's nothing more fun for us than actually knowing that we're part of the process, right? So I think that it's a really fun thing, and I know that Vicky, who's with us today, she's been one of your Kickstarter supporters, and you were the very first one she ever did. She told us that earlier, so that's a really fun thing. And so I think that Bridget put in your Facebook and Instagram, and that's the best way for people to hear when the Kickstart becomes available again, the campaign.
Yeah, social media is, I'll definitely be posting everywhere. Yeah, it's like right now I'm figuring out colors, and pretty much June, I'm looking at, you know, kind of beginning or middle of June for me to launch the next Kickstarter campaign. So yeah, last year was, I mean, everything was fine, you know, in the end, but, you know, delivery was tough last year with all of like the logistics and stuff. So, but this year it should be a lot easier now that borders are opening again, and, you know, shipping is a lot clearer and easier. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And then Bridget, if you could once again, just do me a favor and put the link into our website for the yarn. And again, today only, you guys, we're doing 15% off because it's Earth Day. And honestly, because my other Earth Day things like changed at the last second, I thought, we'll do this, it'll be fun. So enjoy that 15% discount. There's a limited amount of the yarn, but our goal is once we sell through this batch to help John out a little bit more and buy another batch. So it's a yarn that we would like to be able to keep as much as we can in our collection because it really is that fantastic. And we haven't really spoken about price point. And sort of your goals in your thought of how to bring this yarn to market at a really an approachable price. So where was your thought process on that?
Yeah, I guess one of the reasons, you know, that I did the first yarn Kickstarter campaign and that I thought that this would be, you know, something that would actually work is because I looked at the price for a lot of cashmere yarn, knitting yarn, and a lot of times it was cheaper just to buy a finished item than it would be to buy the yarn, and that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So yeah, that's kind of an important part to me, is that people should be able to buy the yarn and, you know, have it be a little bit more affordable that way. And it's still a good way to, you know, maybe if you don't want to spend, you know, that much money on a whole sweater or something like that, if you can make it yourself, and it makes a lot more sense than yeah, make it a little bit wider audience for people.
Yeah, and it's a really worthy goal, right? Because you certainly could have gone the other way and said, look at the margin I could have instead. So I rarely just talk about price, but I think because it's so amazing to me, this is 100 gram skein for $33, and 100 gram skeins, 430 yards fingering weight. Your normal of what you're going to find on the market is usually more like 50 grams, 25 or 50 grams. That will be about that same price. So you're very often going to find 100 gram skein to be anywhere between $75 and about $100. So this is a really amazing price point. And I always have this thing of like, if the price is too low, I always wonder, well, why? Right? What's wrong with it? But I'm just going to tell you, there's nothing wrong with this. It is amazing cashmere. It's going to be one of the best cashmeres you'll ever work with. And it's due mostly to John and the way he's chosen to bring this yarn to market, and the fact that it's quite vertical in Mongolia. So it also means that the people that are raising the animals, right, and spinning it and processing it, that wealth is actually staying in the country. So this is super cool. Overall, the entire thing is amazing to me. It's also a yarn that has a tiny, tiny footprint because most cashmere is going to be raised in Mongolia, Afghanistan, blah, 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 go to China, usually for processing, and then sometimes go to India for dyeing or go to Italy for dyeing. And it'll hit at least 4 countries before it gets to its final country, where this one is 1. And so I love the footprint. And that's part of the reason when we think about this, not just the free range aspect and how much the free range raising of animals is better for the earth, better for the animals, but the yarn itself is phenomenal for that. And so I just wanted to hit all of those little points.
You said it better than I could have. So I'll have to take notes on that too. I need to work on my elevator pitch a little bit, but yeah, that was very well said.
So yeah, I love yarn, so I can talk about yarn anytime. But anyway, it is really, really fantastic. So I strongly encourage you to try it, and you'll really like it. We do have it in store if you want to come and feel it. I do wish we had Feel-O-Vision, because if you could feel the difference, even between these, this you're going to want it, period, and this you're just going to be like, oh my God, I have to have it. And then, so the passport, remember, we're doing a 4-day event. We have lots of live things. There's a passport for a grand prize, which is a gift card to the shop. So the secret code for today is GOAT, which is of course where cashmere comes from, which is just goats. And so there was a link in the chat for that, and we'll make sure that there are links everywhere for it. And then, John, is there anything else that we should know about you, the yarn? Oh, where does Ula and Leah come from?
The name?
The name.
Yeah, so the ULA, Ola, is for Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, which is the capital where all of the production takes place. And then Leah for Mongolia. And so it's just kind of, yeah, it's playing on that, you know, and it's kind of always been, yeah, interesting to me too. You know, UB, I like UB. Some people have, it's an interesting city. I do like UB, but there's that partnership between, you know, what's created and grown in the countryside and then the final products that are produced here, which has always been a really interesting thing for me.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Okay, and I have been saying it incorrectly this whole time, which means it's going to take me forever to say it right. But Ola and Leah, thank you. And then Bridget, we are going to do a gift card. We'll do a gift card to the shop, a $10 gift card at each event this week. So if you want to find a winner for us, just on the Zoom, we'll figure out Facebook later. We'll take this video and we will just, you know, put it onto the Facebook page. Not sure what happened there. And but anyway, John, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you again for staying up to the wee hours of the morning to be with us.
Happy to do it. Always happy to have the opportunity to tell my story. So thank you.